Okay, we are live. Yes,
We're live.
we are. There it goes. Okay, for realsies, it was a little like delayed on my end, so I wasn't sure there. But we are for realsies live. So good afternoon, GitOpsians. Whoa, my brain just core dumped again. It's been so bad this week. It's just something stuck. We just gotta like turn it off and back on again. Like 2 weeks from now, I'll be great, right? So I have been the like most excited about this GitOps Guide to the Galaxy episode about UOR. I think more excited about this than any of the other episodes I've done to date. So that's probably a record because I've been pretty excited about most episodes. But before I introduce our guests who are going to sit here and wait patiently for their turn, I'm going to acknowledge that this is our first stream without Stephanie. And so Johnny from Ask Hat OpenShift admin is very kindly working in the background to make our production happen so that I'm not a multitasking disaster and brain core dumping person this afternoon. So thank you, Johnny. You're my hero. Yeah, so Johnny, can you bring me into the center though? Yeah, there we go. It's making me work for it here. So earlier this week, ArgoCon in Mountain View, California was a thing, and I attended the main conference day, and that was really great. There was a lot of I mean, Intuit was there, obviously. Red Hat was there. Several other companies. Interesting. Adobe was there actually, and they were there just to like share with the world and talk to people about what they call their IDP or internal developer platform that they've done, which is really cool. And so that was like a fun thing. And Evan Shortest gave a keynote speech called "The Future is Declarative," and it was a 5-minute keynote. And I thought that the timing on that was extremely perfect because he had no idea about UOR, but don't worry, I told him. I think I told everybody at the conference about one of two things. I either told them about this episode or I talked to them about HEMA, which is Historical European Martial Arts. It's the sword fighting that I've been doing on weekends with the German longsword. I posted about it on Twitter. Anyway, like that's the only two things I talked about the whole conference. I think everybody was sick of me. So that said, I'm going to let our guests introduce themselves. This is the team behind UOR. And then I will share your slides for you all when you're ready, but you'll have to like tell me like, okay, change slide or skip this slide, or, you know, I don't know how to drive this thing. You just got to tell me how to do it.
We'll beep, just like when you grew up. Beep. Next slide.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll do this not exactly alphabetically. Andrew, I think you should introduce yourself first, and then we'll do Jen, and then we'll do Alex last.
Awesome. Hey, everyone. My name is Andy Block. I'm a distinguished architect in Red Hat's Office of the Technology. Ooh, brand new titles. And this is probably the second or third time I've been on this program. So new face. So you're a weird-looking Christian.
I am a weird-looking Christian. It's true.
But it's all right. So happy to be here. Going to show some cool stuff later on. And Alex, want to go next?
No, Jen next. Alex is the last.
All right.
Say hey everybody, my name is Jennifer Power. I'm a field engineer, about to be a security architect, so I'm kind of in the middle of changing job titles, but this is my first time on here, and I'm happy to be here. I'm excited.
And Alex.
Hey, my name is Alex Flom. I am a senior field engineer, about to also become some flavor of security architect with Jennifer. Also excited about that. And yeah, I don't know if I'm supposed to give a fun fact or whatever, but that's the gist.
Okay, so before I start slowing your slides, Alex, you and I met at DevConf, right? In Boston, which was really fun, and that is where I learned about this and was like, I want this on GitOps Guide, right? And so one of the things that you talked about, if this is going to be presented in the slides, like stop me, but you had talked about the fact that the principles behind UOR are actually drawn from metaphysics.
Yeah.
Can you tell me more about that, or tell our GitOpsians about that?
Yeah. So when we were trying to solve, Jennifer and I had worked on a project called OC Mirror. It was like trying to scrape OpenShift for disconnected use, like pick it up and move it for offline use. We started trying to figure out how to make the how to mirror all content types. Like how do you make every all content portable? And so we started trying to find the solution, and it's like a really hard problem because like everything's dissimilar, everything's terrible, as I like to say. So in trying to find a solution that was truly universal, that could account for everything, we were actually turned on to this metaphysics theory called object-oriented ontology. And object-oriented ontology is the theory of everything, and it accounts for like fiction, social constructs, intangible things, concrete things. So it's like really a pretty cool theory of everything. So we started like really thinking about like how do you apply the theory of everything to handling everything. And so I've been kind of campy on Twitter about this, like saying that like this is the API of reality, and crazy things like that. And Jennifer's done like a really great job in actually taking these like super like abstract concepts and expressing them in code. In what we're going to show here at UOR is an application of that actual metaphysics theory, and it works based on like well, we'll get into that, but yeah, that's the gist of it.
Fantastic. That's still to me like just like super. Oh, sorry. I also have production controls now, so I just like changed things faster than Johnny could, just because I was like curious if it worked the way I thought it worked. Dang it, my brain is core dumping again, so that's where we're at. Yeah, that's it. Unless there's anything else you guys want to discuss, or if Jen wants to expand on that at all, I'm gonna go ahead and start sharing your slides. Yeah. Okay, cool. And then I know we have a demo coming after the slides from Andrew. So really, Kat, right now?
It's always the worst time, you know that.
Oh my god! I left a clothes hanger on the what do you call it? The staircase, the handrail, the banister, and that's she found it. That was my mistake. Okay, so that should be up now. I'm going to make this disappear, and let me know when you want the next slide.
Yeah.
Yeah. That works. Alex, did you want to touch on this a little bit?
Yeah. No. I'll go over this. So it's a UOR is like we were initially when we kind of conceptualized this, we were like, oh, it's a storage solution, or it's this package manager, or it's X, Y, and Z. It's been really hard to actually convey in some type of like a really concise way. And this is the best way I think we found to convey it, is that it's actually a conceptual model. So conceptual models, like the one that comes to mind is like OSI. You have the 7 layers of the OSI model. That's a conceptual model. So you could kind of relate that concept to what UOR is, and it's like we were saying, it's a way to support all content types. It's universal. It's for whatever we want, and it has some really cool features that include granular access of pretty much everything. So, anybody want to expand on that from the team?
I think we can on the next slide, if you want to jump to the next one. Here, I can talk to this a bit.
Yeah.
So this I would call an application of UOR. if we framed UOR as a hypothesis, this is what we're doing to prove it and make it into a theory. So right now it's a storage provider. I like to describe it as like maybe a repository manager, but inside out. So like traditional repository managers, they support like Maven, NPM, they have container registries. And we're saying, let's take all of that and put that into a container registry. And we use that using the power of OCI artifacts and then have some additional features on top of that.
So just for the sake of, in case anybody here doesn't know OCI, can you expand the 3-letter acronym?
I think I can. Open Container Image.
Initiative.
Yeah, initiative, sorry.
So just, going, we got, even my 11-year-old watches this stream sometimes. So like, we got a broad degree of viewers on here. So
I mean, when I hear about OCI artifacts, what most individuals may not know is that you can do more with container registries than just container images. We think of Docker Hub, you think of Quay. All your images you've been running on all your Kubernetes applications or just running on your local machine, they're stored in a registry. You can now store other things in there, like Helm charts, like WASM modules, you name it. But you can also leverage this technology to store OCI components. And Jen and Alice are going to talk more about exactly how we do that.
So in the chat set, I've UOR, Universal Object Reference. I think we kind of covered it. I think we said it earlier. But yes, UOR, Universal Object Reference. In case we didn't remember to expand that 3-letter acronym. TLAs are the worst. And I'll go ahead and take us to our next slide. Yeah.
So this is my favorite everything's horrible slide. So so like if you're trying to move, like for instance, OpenShift or some ecosystem, you expect certain metadata to be available, between content types or whatever. But like, when I see this, just reminds me of like everything I've been trying to do my entire life in like internet disconnected environments and air gaps and everything. It's like I have all of these different components. They have interdependencies between components and content types. That's kind of like the nature of the internet. And I even, there's some cool little symbols down there. I could put like all the web browser icons, because like I even consider like websites and things like that as part of this problem. And on the other side here is kind of like what UOR is trying to do. It's taking one server, one client, and then expressing all this stuff within that model. So and yeah, I even put some references to like databases, message brokers, different modeling applications like AI models or like other models, because we can even handle those or express those within this with UOR. So we're trying to take this proliferation of clients and servers and condense that all into one interaction type. Yeah.
I'm gonna assume next slide.
Yeah.
Okay. You really do have to tell me how to drive this train, man.
I forgot to beep. I'm sorry. I'll try. I'm going to beep next time. Sorry.
Yep. There we go.
This is Jennifer's territory.
Oh, I'm taking this one. Okay. And I'm going to say it right this time. Open Container Initiative, brain fart before. So as we said before, this is based on OCI artifacts, and each file is stored as a blob. I won't go into blobs unless somebody asks. But something important, that we apply attributes to these artifacts. So right now we're using that with annotations, but we're actually allowing them to be typed attributes. So you could do JSON data modeling with your attributes and schema validation. And the next important thing is composability. we want to be able to connect the collections together, sort of like a dependency tree. I could explain it like that. Yep. There you go.
I'm assuming that was the next slide
Nope,
cue.
nope, you were good. You were good. We should do the beep thing like Andrew said, like just beep.
Totally. So yeah, we did get the question, what is the blob? I did link to this, what is a blob, in a binary large object Wikipedia article. I don't know how to describe it. It's extremely ubiquitous, right?
It's a chunk of data.
Yeah, it's it's like almost self-explanatory. If like just imagine a nebulous amount of data for stuff, and that's a blob. Yeah, the Wikipedia article does a much better, more concise explanation. I feel like we end up in these in this industry, we end up in these traps where we start getting comfortable with the usage of certain things, and we end up like almost, I want to like say like getting out of touch with some of like the little like foundational layers of knowledge. Is like, oh, I totally know how to use that, but oh yeah, under the hood, what makes it special? Sometimes I feel like I definitely sometimes it's due to it's like the all breadth, no depth that we start getting into, right? Yeah. As we learn more and more and more things. And I've said recently, like as a principal engineer, as I continue to advance in my career, I get way more comfortable with asking very stupid questions very publicly, and requesting everybody explain to me things like I am 5, because I at this point is not possible to keep all of the things in my head. As evidence,
you want to share, like we all do.
Yeah, exactly. And like as evidenced by the fact that my brain will sometimes just absolutely core dump, right? Like that just gets worse as you get older. Totally solid explanation right there in Wikipedia on blobs, though. And I'll just go ahead and say, like, obviously, GitOps use cases while we're here, and hit the next slide. I have no idea, by the way, what's in this slide deck because I didn't review it ahead of time, even though it was sent to me in advance. I'm the worst.
You're keeping it like a surprise, like our audience.
I get to be as excited and surprised as everybody else.
So, of course, we're here at GitOps. You know, GitOps Guide to the Galaxy. You know, we have to have a way to connect UOR to GitOps, right? Right?
I mean, that was my notion. That was literally my first thought, is like, this has GitOps applications. And that was why I asked for you all to be here.
Andrew, did you want to take this one? I feel
Sure.
like you are in authority.
Oh, I wouldn't. Okay, sure. Let's go with that. So we know that, you know, traditionally, GitOps, you would store everything in Git, a version-controlled system. Well, with GitOps, with OCI, you have in a way another location to store data. We talked about OCI artifacts as, you know, an alternative store to content other than container registry, container images, pardon me. So we can go ahead and store content via UOR in container registries as OCI artifacts. And one of the benefits of this is image registries just container registries are already available in most organizations these days. They've basically become synonymous with any artifact store, like a Nexus, Artifactory. They're just there now. I remember probably 5-6 years ago, it was somewhat boutique to have a container registry. Containers aren't what they are today. Thank goodness they are what they are. We can go ahead and start to create relationships between additional sources. This goes a little bit more beyond what Git repositories can provide us now. Git does provide ways to link, you know, data through its traditional data structure, but we're not leveraging that traditionally. We can go ahead and start doing that with UOR. And also, we can increase the deployment visibility and correlation between various types of content. So one of the benefits is that we're not reinventing the wheel. We're just going ahead and making use of it. And I've told the team here, we didn't invent this type of solution. We're the Colonel Sanders, if you're from the US or just are familiar with Kentucky Fried Chicken. We're just perfecting what's already out there. We're including 11 herbs and spices. Very tasty, promise it.
Yeah. From my perspective is to state it a different way. There are things that Git can't do, and right now we introduce tooling in order to compensate for that. And this allows to kind of have the same level of functionality with a consolidated tooling, right?
Exactly. We'll start beeping now and do next slide. So the future with GitOps can be used with UOR. Basically, you can go ahead and to describe your manifest that you're running right now, storing in Git repositories with annotations and other metadata to relate one another. And then you can also make use of artifact management. So you can use the infrastructure that you currently have, like container registries, to store this type of content. So it really opens up another realm, another paradigm that others may not have thought about. There are some solutions that are starting to see this type of solution, but they aren't quite as far along and using technologies the way that we are with the UOR. They're leveraging OCI artifacts, standard, but they haven't really gone into the collection linking and other metadata associations from one another that you can do some more complex querying and metadata storage. And I'll beep again.
I like that you say I will beep instead of just saying beep.
Like, it's got to be more, more show. So I know I'm going to demo, but Alice, do you want to or Jen, just kind of talk through what we're going to demo? And then I will take over the demo. We can kind of roll from there.
Sure, I can talk a little bit about it. And I think it actually addresses one of the questions that I see in the chat. I think it's important to note that Git has a lot of things that we can achieve right now with registries and OCI, like merge conflicts and being able to use PRs. And I think I would like to think of this as an additive benefit to your current Git workflows and not something that's replacing Git. So in this demo, we're using Git to store the manifest and to store artifacts that configure or pull subsets of collections. So we have a published collection, and Andrew's going to show how we are using Argo and collections and attribute filtering to apply collections and workloads to clusters intelligently.
It's kind of crazy when you think about it, because I was putting this demo together with the team, and we're like, this sounds really cool. We think we can do it. It was one of those, we have 24 hours because we know we want to show a cool demo, and we're like, this has to work. It's gonna work. And then so I'm actually over in Europe right now, and it was like 3 a.m. last night, and I'm like, oh my god, it works! Holy shnikes!
And for the record, when you and Alex presented about UOR at DevConf, like, you guys gave a perfectly good demo that would have been totally fine to reuse here. And in fact, I insisted multiple times. I was like, just reuse the same demo. Like, the people will understand what we're saying. No. This group had to completely overachieve. I'm going to go ahead and stop my screen share. Yes?
Well, I just wanted to say something about the demo. Like when we say UOR is universal, like, that's what we want to show. And I think that, like, what Andrew did here is, like, also kind of a testament to how composable the UOR, the reference implementation libraries are that Jennifer put together. So, like, I think he was able to reference those libraries and just throw this together pretty quickly. And not only that, but like, it's just kind of like, yeah, we could do websites like we did at DevConf. We can do, this, like the Argo plugin, like we're talking about here. But, like, it's pretty easy to make plugins with UOR. Like, I started, it's not finished, so, like, don't like ask me to show it to you or anything. But, like, we're working on, like, a kind driver, right, for, like, a Kubernetes cluster. Like, could you write cluster state directly to a container registry? And what would be the implications of that? But, like, the thought experiment's kind of like another continuation of, like, yeah, it's universal. Like,
it's a
ask me what
pluggable-
else we can put into it.
It's a pluggable architecture, and that's the benefit of it. Is depends on what use case you want to solve. UOR can fit in very, very easily.
And I think it's a very even for a team of multiple engineers, even for a distinguished engineer, less than 24 hours to put together a demo speaks more to the benefits of the technology you're using than the skill of the engineer. No offense, Andrew.
Oh, none taken. That's the best part about this is that I didn't invent it. I just went ahead and put the recipe together.
Exactly. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing and let you start sharing.
Sure. Go ahead and do that. Let's see how this goes. Can you see my screen?
Wait, hang on. I can, but I have to, there. And now you need to change tabs so we're not infinite mirrored.
Oh, come on. That'd be fun. All right.
I do love the infinite mirror phenomena, actually. I really do.
So Alex kind of gave the special sauce away, but what we're going to demonstrate is how we can use UOR in a way with Argo CD to retrieve content that's stored within a container registry, not within a Git repository, containing Kubernetes manifests. Argo CD, we want to be able to deploy content. So what we did is we put together a little bit of a demo that showcases how we can store Kubernetes manifests, go ahead and add additional metadata to those manifests, and use relationships and querying to take content that's stored in an OCI registry in what we call a collection, just basically a set of related to an extent or associated resources in a OCI artifact. So I can kind of walk through what that looks like. So for the demo, we have, I love demos, so I'm going to send this over to, can someone send this over to the chat so we can at least show this out while I'm demonstrating?
Yeah, link anything and I'll do it.
Yeah, can someone just send it over to Hilliary and we can go ahead and get it out there. This is an Argo CD plugin. So if you're familiar with Argo CD is a GitOps engine that's really responsible. It's, OpenShift GitOps is built on top of it. We've probably shown it about 18,000 times on the show. One of the ways that you can extend Argo CD is through the concept of plugins. So you can add your own additional special sauce. Some common plugins out there. The one that I probably use the most is the HashiCorp, the Vault Argo CD plugin for integrating with HashiCorp Vault. Great plugin, highly recommended. So you can create your own, and it's very composable, customizable. All you need to do is your plugin just needs to spit out Kubernetes resources. Doesn't matter how you get those resources or how you generate them. Traditionally, you're going to go ahead and take content that's from a Git repository that Argo CD is using, and then maybe massaging the data, enhancing it, like if the Argo CD Vault plugin is going to go ahead and retrieve some values from HashiCorp Vault and inject them in. But what we're doing is we're going to go ahead and we're going to take the Kubernetes resources that are stored in an OCI repository based on
Andrew,
content.
Can you Command plus?
I can do that. Plus away.
There we go.
Better?
Yep.
Cool. Thank you. I don't know if I have to do it for every single tab, but no worries. So I'm going to walk through a simple example. Hence the reason we call it simple, of the set of content, which is located here. We have 4 resources. We have a deployment that we want to represent our dev environment. We have a deployment that represents our prod environment, and 2 common resources, a route and a service. So we want to have basically create 2 separate namespaces that Argo will maintain, and we want to deploy resources from the dev. Basically the one deployment and one namespace will be the dev deployment, the route and the service, and then for the prod namespace, we're going to have the prod deployment and the route and the service. And we're going to store all these 4 resources within a single UOR collection, store that within an OCI artifact, and then use UOR to just extract certain pieces of those resources from that collection. So to create a collection, you use the UOR client. It's a Go binary, very much like many other binaries and utilities within the Kubernetes ecosystem. You then build it, and by doing so, we can actually build it what we call a dataset configuration, which allows us to add additional attributes to our resources. So we basically say that any file that is called star.dev.yaml, we'll add the dev true attributes. Prod equals true. And then for like service and route, we can then just add ones that are attributes for both of them. Dev equals true, prod equals true, and so on and so forth. And then we use the collection, or the client to create the collection, and then push that to an OCI artifact registry. And that's what I've done. I've gone ahead and just created or pushed it to a GitHub container registry, repository, GHCR, my username, Argo CD plugin, simple, because this is the simple demo, latest. And using everyone's favorite tool, Scopio, we can actually look at what the manifest of that OCI artifact looks like. So
hey, Andrew.
Yes.
I was just going to say, when you had that up there, it said Docker, and I was just going to clarify that, like, Docker's not going to pull this, right? Like,
nope.
These aren't container images. These are a totally different animal.
Yeah, it's just GitHub assuming that you're going to pull it with Docker. Quay is actually the same way. If you go to quay.io, it says Docker too, because that's what the majority use. But we're going to be using Scopio to inspect the content. So we can just go ahead and just do Scopio inspect. We'll use the raw parameter, which will go in and grab the manifest, and we'll just call the Docker URL, and then just pipe it over to JQ so we can take a look at it. And by doing so, we get the manifest, which contains the config, as well as you can see, we have a custom config with our specific media type for UOR, and we have the different layers. Basically, every single one of those Kubernetes manifests are stored as a different layer within this OCI artifact. And you will also notice a few things, a few key points inside this manifest. You will see annotations that have the file name in relation to where it's stored on the file system, as well as those attributes, this is the deployment prod. You'll see that we have prod equals true, and so on and so forth. And so like for the service down here, you will have the dev equals true and prod equals true because it's applicable for both. Now, we've gone ahead and we've packaged up these set of manifests inside this collection. We've stored it in an OCI artifact registry. Now let's go ahead and let's use it within Argo. We'll use typical Argo like we normally do. And to do so, we have how do you reference application? How do you reference deployment resources and other resources in Argo CD? Well, you go ahead and you use a Argo CD application. So we have one here for our dev environment. We're going to call it simple UOR dev. We're going to go ahead and, once again, since we're using OpenShift, we're going to use the default OpenShift GitOps namespace. We're going to create a brand new namespace called simple UOR dev. We're going to say our content happens to be located in the examples simple source folder. We're going to point to the collection. This is where we have our plugin configuration. We're going to pass some values in. We're going to pass the collection name, which is going to be the same location in GitHub Container Registry we mentioned a moment ago. And then we're going to specify the attribute query. This repo URL and source is going to contain an attribute query. And we're going to go switch over to that and show you what an attribute query looks like and how it's incredibly important to being able to help filter content from our UOR collection. So we'll go back over here. We'll go to simple, source, and then in here we have two files. We have our dev attribute query and our prod attribute query. And all we're doing here is saying that we want to pull out attributes that happen to match dev equals true. So if you remember, it's going to be the service, the route, and for the dev equals true, it's going to be the dev deployment. And then we'll show the prod one. So let's go ahead and go back over here to Argo CD. We're going to go ahead and just grab the content. We'll copy over here. We'll go into our favorite OpenShift terminal. We have access. We're just going to add this over to our cluster. Give it a second to load. No fancy stuff here, just copying and pasting. We see we have our Argo CD application, not a soul in there. We'll go ahead and click on create, and boom. We now have it going in here, loading up. And just like that, we have not only our application is now being pulled automatically, translated, pulled from that UOR collection, and you see we have a, basically a route, a deployment, and a service. And we'll just go back over here to our topology view. We go here to the UOR, simple UOR dev. We'll go into the topology view. We can see our application, wonderful OpenShift web console showing that. Load it, and if you are a follower of this web stream, you may remember this page from probably about a year or two ago when we did an introduction to Helm and Argo CD. This was the application that we ended up demonstrating. So this is great, right? Just like that, we didn't have any type of Kubernetes manifest in our Git repository, yet we still pulled content from our UOR collection stored in our container registry. And in the end, we have our typical Kubernetes manifest being realized in our OpenShift cluster. And to round it out, we're going to go ahead, and this is our dev namespace. We'll go ahead and we will just go back over here to prod. The key is this is going to be prod. And one thing I will note, and this is important, is that if we go back to the deployment object itself, the key difference is in this deployment object, we have an environment variable. The environment equals prod. That's going to change the content of our web page. So that we can be able to differentiate between dev and prod. We'll just change the background color, something simple. So I'm going to go over here to OpenShift again. We're going to go ahead and paste this in. The difference, once again, is that we're going to be creating a brand new namespace called simple UOR prod, just to separate everything out. We'll click create. We'll go back over here to Argo. Argo is going to synchronize. We have our application coming up. It's now running. We can go over here back to OpenShift. We now have a second one called simple UOR prod. We'll go back to the topology view, and boom, we now have a red background because, oh my goodness, we're in red. We're in prod. We're definitely red. So that is a simple use case of how universal object reference can help not only fulfill the ability to leverage GitOps, but how we can now integrate this into tooling that's already available in OpenShift. All you need to do is make a quick change to your Argo CD resource. So if you're familiar with Argo CD plugins, you can make a quick change to Argo CD resource, inject the logic that you need, and you can just get off and running. And one of the benefits is all this is available. If you want to try it out now in your environment, go for it. We have a simple walkthrough of how to set up Argo CD with the plugin enabled, and a simple getting started that just kind of walks through that exact same getting started process. So while this is just the first step in what our UOR can do, we hope you at least had an opportunity to see the power that this technology can provide.
So before I ask Waleed's question for him, I really thought for a second you were going to say we have a red background because we were Red Hat. And I was like, I mean, cringy, but all right. But then you didn't even do it. So then I'm like, oh, I'm the cringy one. Like,
I'm sorry. I'm just the crazy one.
that's that was I was absolutely not expecting you to not lean into that real hard. So that was fun. So Waleed asked the question, how would you picture the process of replicating a cluster with its deployments? Install OCP, install GitOps operator, install UOR plugin, configure Argo/plugin. Is there a better bootstrap?
Well, that bootstrap process always is, what comes first, the chicken or the egg. What I typically have always done in OpenShift is I will either use a cluster management tool like Advanced Cluster Management to bootstrap that, but you're always going to have some sort of tooling that has to get that initial seed going. It could be any automation tool that you'd like. It could be Ansible, it could be scripts, it could be really anything. Or if you already have ACM running, it can be that as well. You then go ahead and stand up your foundational components, and then, as I always say, you light the flame, and it just explodes and basically deploys and manages everything. Which is kind of scary because you basically go from 0 to hero with minimal effort. And once again, you could go ahead and leverage like UOR to contain all your Kubernetes manifests that contain everything. Not only it could even contain everything from your Kubernetes manifest to your Helm charts to anything that you need in your environment. And then if you're running potentially in a disconnected environment, you can say, okay, I want to take some Helm charts and then push that out to other content. It really becomes just the tip of the iceberg, which is kind of scary. We're just showing you the foundation of what you could build. And we've only started to think about and consider the possibilities. It's now that we get the community to start bringing in their use cases. That's why we're working and sharing our story with you all to get you to start thinking about how you would make use of it.
With what Andrew said also, and there was a slide, Hilliary, when you were presenting that went into like what we see as like the future, like I think what Andrew's talking about now is like what the current state of the art, or state of the way things are. And like there's workflows that we started kind of like actually working towards being able to implement, but they're based on this idea that every collection in UOR represents an entity that can either be called by another collection or call another collection. And what that means is that we made a claim that UOR could do a container-like workflow for any element of an information system. So a collection could be a host's definition. A collection could be like a process, like you would use for an application, like containers are kind of used now. A collection could mean an entire data center. So when a collection's, what we're working towards is these are self-assembling entities where they you have these linked together, and then they create this this self-assembly. So you have hosts self-assembling, or even potentially an entire data center. I know that's pretty wild, far out, and we have some discussions within the projects. One of the repos, the project for the UOR project, where we kind of start talking about how we're moving towards that type of paradigm functionality.
Right. So Kat asked, and I'm gonna pull it up on the screen. Yeah. So Kat says, so are you saying that I can now store configuration in OCI with my containerized application and use something like OC Mirror to also manage carrying config and applications into AirGap?
I'll take that one. I would say yes. That's kind of how the idea spawned. Even is we were developing OC Mirror, and we could only carry across images, and we got lots of questions like, well, what if I want to carry across a config or an executable or an AMI or something like, and OCI artifacts and collections help us do that. So I would say absolutely.
Oh, good, because that's how I would have answered that question too. I think I would have actually just stopped at that. Yes, that was my understanding. So, we were talking about this episode on Twitter, right? I tweeted the most I've ever tweeted in my entire life about this particular episode. And so there was a discussion on Twitter, and I think Kat, Sneaky Cat, was actually part of this discussion about the desire to replace etcd with UOR. And I have like so many very deep thoughts on that, but I will point people towards that discussion. Alex, I think you said that you had sort of like put in GitHub like kind of like the outline of what that might look like, and that there's the if the community wants to get that working, like go for it. I'm gonna ask if anybody wants to sort of expand on that kind of thought process a little bit. Although we're okay on time, and then don't let me forget after that answer to come back to Waleed's next question.
So etcd is obviously like a pretty fairly mature technology. So like what the disclaimer there is like anything we do with UOR to do a kind driver or whatever is obviously not going to be like a performance solution. It's kind of like just like a, kind of demonstrating like what we could do. Like you can literally just take any content, whatever it is, whether it's files or, God, don't even get me started. Anything and put it in the registry, right? And like, I think like some of the workflows that we have or the way that etcd works now, like is not really like, that's just a POC or an MVP or proof of concept or, some kind of like a stunt, I guess, because what we're going to need to, if we want that to develop into a mature solution, you're going to have other like consensus algorithms and other components of that solution to make it more viable for like distributed or even like was something that we're really that I'm excited about UOR is it kind of unlocks like decentralized solutions also. So like some people might be like, I don't know, decentralized cluster management is kind of weird. I'm not really sure how to like fit that statement into like a neat box or concept. But yeah, so I mean it's a kind of a stunt. It's kind of cool. Kind of shows what we can do. I'd be super excited to be able to say we did it, if nothing else.
I mean, we can do it. Doing it doesn't mean we do it at an enterprise-ready scale, right? Sometimes we do things because we can, because that creates the building block or the thinking process for whatever the real next generation thing is, right? I think most of us have been around the industry long enough that we've seen stuff like that happen. Every time you solve a problem, you get a new problem, and then you have to figure out how to solve that new problem. So,
I mean, I think back to a project I was playing with years ago. I called it Image Hauler, and it was a way that you could move container images without using the Docker client. This is years ago, and then I got through most of it. I learned a lot about it, and then as I was wrapping it up, this little project came out from Red Hat called Scopio, and I went, "Oh well, that's nice. Okay, the libraries look the exact same. The calls look the exact same. Yeah, they probably know how to do it better than I do." So I went ahead and said, whatever. But I think it's the concepts, I was chatting with some folks during the time, it might have gone ahead and spread some ideas downstream. That's one of the benefits about Red Hat is you can basically just use open source in the community to help, drive innovation faster. Powerful, but kind of along the same lines.
Yeah, I think that's my favorite thing about open source or like community, right? Is one, seeing how other people have done things. I was giving a presentation earlier this morning, and for the just like kind of self plug. Red Hat is a sponsor for a nonprofit called the WIT Network, which is specifically for women in technology. I created a community within that called WIT Wise for women in software engineering. We were actually just presenting earlier today about like best practices. And one of the points I made in that is that when we're writing software, right, where we're coding, what we're doing is we're solving logic problems, right? And there's usually multiple approaches to solve the same problem. So seeing different things in the open source community that approach the same problem in different ways and solve it in different ways, right? That really allows to drive towards what becomes the next best practices, right? I always say choose your technical debt wisely, right? Part of that is choosing a solution that meshes with the way you logic through problems. And of course, like the coolest thing about our jobs is we get to spend 20% of our time working in open source at minimum, right? Heck yeah, I'm all about that. So that's it. I want to bring up Waleed's question. So how about visibility, right? And I appreciate this question as somebody who's been doing reliability engineer for the last couple of years, right? In Git, I can see the manifest, some sort of directory structure helps, and in OCI, how would I tell what is inside diffs, versioning, tracking, etc.?
So there's a couple of things. That's obviously a somewhat complex question because you have a lot of different areas to hit. In terms of reference from one another, we talked about OCI annotations and references there. There is some work in the OCI community around reference types for you to orchestrate and correlate different resources together. That's very important if you look at like SBOMs, so you can start to organize different content types. So that's one. Regarding to history, once again, Docker container images, they are a layered file system, so you can provide some sort of way that you can build on top of another. So if you want to create a similar paradigm, you can go ahead and redefine from a base. So you could potentially start with a collection and then add more content on top of it. So you do have that history of what was previously and what is now. So there are different ways that you can, as I say, skin the cat, but that's something that our team is just starting to just begin thinking about. And while you come up with very, very good use cases and good questions, and those are ones that we're going to have to address at some point. So might as well start looking into them early.
Yeah, I think I'd like to just point out this is an emerging technology, right? I think that's the best way that I would put it. This is an emerging technology. I have you all here on this stream, like I would say, very early stage for the project, simply because I think it's the coolest thing I've seen this year. And it's like, we're coming into the end of September. Like that's a pretty good amount of, like, this is the coolest thing, the thing that I thought was the neatest that I've seen so far this year. And I see a lot of stuff. So my reference base is pretty good, and I'm very excited about this. And I think we could just do another like yearly check-in, right? Very easily on this to see how far it's come. And who knows, like, right, the community drives direction in a lot of ways. So we did share the GitHubs for this in the episode description. I'm going to make sure we post them again. And I would, on behalf of this team, invite more people to get involved and start raising issues against the GitHub for things you're thinking about and use cases that you're have on your mind and noodling on. And like, let's put let's get some real community behind us and see what we can do.
Yeah, I don't know how we're like time is, but
we're 7 minutes to top of the hour.
Okay. I was just gonna say, like, in the DevConf talk, we talked about like some like real far out use cases where like you'd have like infrastructure definitions, and then you would instantiate an environment from those definitions, and then all the output of that environment would then be written back to the same graph that contained the system's definition in the first place, like all the log output. And the reason I'm bringing that up is because like when I think about visibility, I'm thinking about traceability. I'm thinking like Uber visibility, and that's one of the things that I'm most excited about when I think about visibility in UOR is like the ability to have the traceability and then the history, so you can look at each version of that configuration, and then potentially have situations where like a CI pipeline you had like defined with that configuration defined within UOR, and then all the output artifacts of that pipeline, including logs and any intermediary packages or whatever it is then written back to it. And then you can reference subsets or supersets of that pipeline. And I don't know if that is coherent in the way that it's being received, but that's something that gets me excited about UOR too, when I hear that question.
Yeah, not only does that make complete sense to me, again, coming from quality engineering background, CICD background, but it expressly addresses problems that I've tried to solve in the past with CICD pipelines, right? Like even down to like, to my mind, you could use something like this to like use dynamically generate pipelines with slight differences between them to get better metrics and understanding of your build situations and so forth. Yeah. And allowing something like this that's a little bit more modular. I just got a cat. She's just jumped up on my lap right now. She used to drop down from the top of the bookshelves onto my head when I was talking before I changed chairs to a smaller chair. The target got too small, so now she's not that brave. But anyway, it solves some problems, because some of the hardest problems to solve when you're trying to do like pipelines or testing on like large scale distributed systems can go down to how many permutations of this can I get. And something like UOR makes that easier for people. No, don't step on the keyboard.
If you think about it too, it could help with like in terms of visibility and auditing. Like typically you don't see people going and getting logs or like artifacts from CI and going and connecting them directly back to the origin. But you could do that here. You could package up your logs in a collection, hook it up and say, this is the PR this came from, and then go and link it as a collection to your original collection. So kind of some discoverability in there.
Yeah, you can do it. It's very hard. Right? I've had to do that. It's very hard and it's extremely manual. And then they still don't really end up in a collection like this where it's nice and neatly packaged, but like you can create the relations. It's gotten easier with time. Tools have gotten better, but like no, like certainly not like that nice and cleanly done. Yeah, so that 100%. It's people would do it more if it were consistently this easy, right? Because I've had to debug down to which commit broke the thing. I think a lot of people have had to debug down to which commit broke the thing. So that the potential person hours saved on an implementation like that has like significant financial like ROI. To use the business terms, that means money.
Yeah.
Okay, so we are coming out to the last few minutes before top of the hour. If there are any outstanding last minute questions, like get them in right now, because I think I have a hard stop. Sorry, folks. That said, announcements. Next episode was October 6th. We have Martin Jackson joining us from the Validated Patterns team. That was another DevConf connection and find, and I'm very very excited about that because people have been paying attention to my new business card title of Chief Mermaid, because they let me pick my title, and I'm like, oh, I'm just picking the best title I can think of. A lot of my new job has to do around like similar types of work. So the overlap and partnership that I'm looking forward to with that, I'm very personally excited about. It's going to make my life so much better. It's already making my life better, the fact that this exists. So if you want a little bit of a preview of that, just honestly, like Google Red Hat validated patterns and it comes up first result. It's fantastic. And then we have I don't remember the one that's after that. That's a month from now. That's future Hillary's problem. She'll work it out. But it is there, and I'll be doing my best to promote those and everything a little bit more timely than I have. So I'm going to thank you three again for coming on and talking about this technology. I really appreciate it. I'm still really stoked about it. I think this might be episode of the year, which is a shame that it wasn't episode 42, but episode 42 was really, really good. So that said, again, thank you so much. Thank you, Johnny, for running production for me so that I wasn't a hot mess. My first solo episode without our producer, Stephanie, who's moved on to do other cooler things in Red Hat than this stream. There's no cooler things in Red Hat than this stream. You heard it from me. So that said, yeah, so appreciate everybody. Appreciate the audience. Again, thank you guys for joining. Trying to make sure that I didn't miss any questions. I did not. So we're going to go ahead and end it here. And since I say it every time, and it's once again extremely topical, don't forget, folks, choose your technical debt wisely, and we will see you in 2 weeks. Bye-bye.